Anyway, Tom, well brought up here. So
Yeah,
take it
so
away.
Bruce, I think you're the first one who's actually, well, listened, maybe not watched an episode, but I think you know what this is the on the spot, right? So we got a couple questions, and why don't you take a look? I tend to move them around a little bit, hopefully make them better for each guest, but um,
There's some fluidity here, Tom. I'm impressed. Like
yeah, I mean,
number six is not what's your favorite Billy Joel album anymore.
that was very specific for one guest, so
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely, well, he's more now of a Bruce Hornsby guy. So
Ah,
okay.
he just saw him last weekend up in Vermont. So he somehow, like back in the day, he was a chauffeur and chauffeured Bruce Hornsby up to Jay Peak or something from
Ooh,
Burlington. So the story that I get. So
nice.
That's amazing. Well, like Punk, I don't think we've spoken Bruce in 35 years or so. So I wouldn't know if Punk is a Bruce Hornsby fan now, but he was a Billy Joel fan when
oh
I.
yes. We
So
try to
anyway,
get together at least once a year. It's been a little bit since COVID. Um, but we
I have
try
no.
to get up there, and I get up there more because I'm a teacher and I have summers off. So I travel a lot, and I'll hit Speculator, then I'll go to either Lake Placid or Jay where he was for the last 10 or more years. And then my college roommate who was in that picture with your brother, Don, um, lives in Concord, New Hampshire, who also was I roomed with him for 2.5 years. So I
Okay.
do a roommate tour kind of thing of the Northeast and enjoy tomfoolery. We'll just leave it at that.
I love it. So any questions here that are interesting for you?
I like number four about the people or person.
All right.
Um, I saw your dad in the Napa store at O'Connor's a couple times, and I was just as a 55-year-old man, I'm nervous as heck to try to say hi. Don, it's Bruce
Oh,
O'Byrne, you know,
Really?
and I just didn't want to disturb him, and I just
oh.
was like, you know, I understand, and I just was like, I'm just gonna let him be, and
When
he's
was
in
that? When was that, Bruce? Like exactly? Because
four
there's a
years.
line of demarcation here. But let me answer it first, and
Yeah.
I'll let you know. Yeah, when was
It
that?
was probably 4 summers ago.
Okay, all right, okay. That was this is relevant, but that was
Okay.
pre the reconnection back to Cam. Not that. Okay, listen. My dad. I told you in the emails, the correspondence we had since the book came out, that my grandfather especially and my dad, but they appreciated your family so much that of course he would have wanted to reconnect if he recognized you or whatever, but understand.
I can
So
piece it together.
Yeah.
just an encouragement for you. This is what I would have done. I would have said, Mr. Purdy, bring it in. And you get in there, and you give him a big bear hug, and you hold it until it's really uncomfortable. That's how it's done. Okay.
Yeah, when's the last time you did that to Don?
At a weekend at Dom's house, we went to watch the Bills play,
That
and
was 2015 or
yeah,
16. Yeah.
I gave him some loving.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You
All
are
right.
a
Well,
braver
it
man than
wasn't a
I.
random encounter.
Listen,
But
I
still,
don't like hugs. I'm not a physical touch person, but if it makes the other person uncomfortable, I'm in. I
All
am,
for it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So I would include your mother in that
okay.
also. Um, I know she was a great lady, and being in the dining hall all the time, I saw a lot of her, and
yeah,
that was fun.
yeah,
Um,
she would be on my list as well. I have not talked to her in 30 plus years
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, the
either.
dining hall, Bruce. That was
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that was her. in the summer, her she worked there. She ordered the food after Ken Reed took over, and that was kind of her sanctuary, a place in camp where she really got to know the people like you. You were bussing tables. Who were you? The years that you were bussing, who were you bussing with?
My first year busing was 82,
Okay.
and it was Ed Shute and I want to say Evan Christensen.
Okay. I went to high school with Evan. Yeah.
Because Fish had stopped coming, and there was another guy. There was those three guys. Pete something, I can't think of. Willis, something like that. He was a short, blonde-haired guy, and it was Shut and Fish and Pete were the guys for years.
Okay.
And through my dish room years of 80 and 81, they were the guys. And they were like, so I always wanted to be a busboy. So my first year, I got B section, which is not typical because Evan hadn't worked at camp and I had quote unquote seniority. So I got B section. And then there was I came back to it again, I think in 86. 85, I was the head dish room. And Bobby had come up to Houghton for the camp employment day. And he's like, Bill O'Byrne's son, Bruce? And I was like, yeah. And, I don't know if he even knew Dad was at Houghton. So,
well, he had come back from Hong Kong, which... Right. By the way, yeah.
So Dad went there in 80, right after I graduated high school in 83. So the summer of 83, we moved, and then the 84, we built their house. So those were the 2 summers I missed of, I was there 7 summers, and with those 2, it would have been 9. So I might have been part of the woodwork at that point.
Back to number 4. I think we've already got Tim Sandoval, right?
Yep.
Who was the second person you said?
Don and Donnie's parents.
Don's dad, and then Don's mom.
Well, I was gonna, Tom, when you brought up this question, I was gonna kind of go on record here as saying this could be a challenge for us. So whoever chooses to answer this question, and whoever their answer is our challenge to get on next or soon.
Yeah.
Try to put some.
That would be an amazing
great
feat
idea
to get your parents on here. But
yeah.
Hold on. By the way, if I did see your mom, Don, I would also give her an uncomfortably long hug as well. No question.
Oh, of course you would, Tom. Yeah, I have it here somewhere. I would say this is my favorite landmark at camp, the Trinity Tree.
Oh,
yeah. This is my family. Probably my boys were probably 8 and 5, maybe.
Nice.
And we would stay at a place across the lake for years. And then we've been renting a cabin off a golf course road for the last 12 years from a lady that had posted it on a 80kbyowner.com, and I contacted her and she took it down. It was like, I didn't even get a chance to show my family the pictures of the place. Can you send me the pictures so I can show my family? So we've actually become friends, and I stop in on them and check up, and she's a little about my age too. So she's from Rochester, and it's a really cool thing to be on Sacandaga. So
yeah, so a couple things there. Golf course road, is that where I think Punk said that Ricky holds his Labor Day?
Yep, down at their there's a shared access to the lake by the people that live from the T south, I guess. Okay. So yeah, then Ricky lives right at the top of the road, so right across from the golf shack. Right. And so their son Dylan drives a golf cart back and forth between the house and the beach. So yeah. and then you play golf. You know, we get out at night and do 3 holes where they can't see us playing. So, you know,
Yeah.
some silly things that we still do at our age. But
I'm going to play there this Saturday with my son-in-law and our future son-in-law. So
that's cool.
went up for a few days, but
I know.
So Bruce, we do story time with Tom tonight. We're doing story time with Bruce.
Woo, wow.
So you actually gave Don quite a good amount of material for his book. And so this is out of Don's book. I have the author's permission for you to read this because you're both the authors. But the pranks at Camp in the Woods, come on.
You know, having an older brother that worked on staff and especially music staff, I thought about why wasn't I better friends with Don and didn't continue it on with you guys afterwards. But I was in that kind of between Bill's friends and my friends, and I was in that world in between at times. So I would hang out with like the Judds and the Phil Peterson and others from that Bills era, and then with my people. And then it was, you know, one of the best stories, and I guess this, I don't know if it was in the book or not, but think of the dining hall and the table, the 8 table right outside the porch. Yeah. And I remember, I think it was when I came back in 85 and 86 that we took that table over, because that was the table of the Ed Schutz and the Fishes and Kathy Deckerman and all those people that were 5-6 years older than us. And they had slowly left camp, and now like Nate and Earl and Punk and other people, Catherine and others, Linnea, all kind of took over that table. And we remember, or I remember, like new staff tried to sit there and we're like, you need to move over there.
It was a pecking order still.
Oh, yeah. It was, you know, that was the table. And, you know, some of those people were like night watchmen back, or checkers back when I was, you know, 15, 16, 17. And now I'm at 20, 21, 22, and I was their age. And so you had this pecking order where, you know, we're in our 20s and you guys are still teenagers. And being checkers was a lot of fun, making sure the kids were in and the silly things that we did up there. But yeah,
when you talk about that table, Bruce, it had a vantage point of looking out your left, out the window, down the dining hall hill, and also kind of at the kitchen. And if the kitchen crew, Dot's kitchen crew and her family, to whatever extent any of them ever ventured outside of their sanctuary from that kitchen area, you would get a glimpse of it. And I didn't write too much about this in the book, because they were so special. But, they had to live. They had to bust out of their, you know, for their own sanity at some points.
Well, I remember you talking about Dallas. And Dallas would always be walking down that hill out toward town. And I don't remember the guy who's like, hey, how you doing? Donald. Maybe. Yeah, Donald. Okay.
Yeah.
But my dad knew Dot from his days on staff. And then so when I was in the dish room, and especially head, you know, we would do the cleanup on Wednesday mornings, and she would give us the sticky buns after we had completed it. And I loved her glazed donuts, because not many people had those. They didn't put those out at the snack shop too often at the teepee, or they didn't come out to the dining hall. But the glazed donuts were what I loved.
Oh,
And she would make sure Bruce, oh yeah, I love that Bill O'Byrne, in her southern
Bruce.
drawl, and, I remember Bill, and I wonder where I got my tomfoolery from, Dad.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let's talk about some tomfoolery right here.
okay, let's do it.
We had Bob Birdie on a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about pranks. This one did not make the top of his list because that one involved snakes.
But he remembered it. He remembered this one that you're about to
he
talk
did
about.
remember it, and we talked about it. But I would love to get you to read what you submitted to Don, because getting it from your perspective is going to be so much better. If you would, please.
I loved his response when you said that. He's like, "Oh, Bruce O'Byrne."
Yes.
And that was his thing right there.
Right.
Okay, here we go. As a teacher, I hate reading out loud, but I'll do it. One night, I decided to hide all the silverware in the plate warmers behind the counter. I thought it was a bit lame, but one that would be found quickly, so not to disturb the last meal of the guests. The next morning, I walked blearily-eyed into the dining hall. I was greeted by Ken Reed and Bobby Purdy, asking if I had any knowledge of who may have taken the silverware. This went through the staff breakfast and into the guest breakfast. Plasticware had to be used during those meals. I kept this to myself. At one point, Bobby brought me down to the commissary to ask if I thought he could have been a former staff member who had been released earlier in the summer. I played it cool and gave away nothing.
Okay. Let's
reasonable question by him, right?
Well, here's my question. He brought you down to the commissary if I thought it could be a former staffer, or was he putting the heat on you?
Well, when he brought in Ken Reed too, and the three of us are standing in there, I am literally shaking in my Nikes, and I do not have a good poker face, but that day I had to have the poker face of all poker faces, and it was tough, but it came to me, I think today or yesterday, that earlier in that summer, somebody had taken the silverware and put it in your grandparents' yard, sticking it into the yard. And I won't disclose her name, but her sister, she had a sister that worked there too, on music staff, both of them, but I won't say who they are.
All right.
And actually, one of them lives close to me, and I
don't know. You're creeping into giving this
teacher advisor to him when he did some teaching for me at school. So
we're gonna get that person on.
Okay, so here we go.
Hold on. The other question I had for you at this point: did anybody else know you had done this, or was it solo?
It was definitely, actually, it was with that guy. But the guy that was released earlier, because he was on vacation with his family that week. So
quite the alibi there. Yeah.
That was a former staffer released earlier in the summer. Okay.
Say that again.
It was the former staffer released earlier.
Yeah, so I didn't really lie, but
dance. This is intriguing.
I just stretched it, or
I love this. This is good.
Well, as I was walking back to my cabin, which I was in the basement of the Tibbetts house, I mentioned to Jim Brake that that we never checked the warmers. After returning to Houghton, I heard it wasn't until Sunday morning that the silverware was found. The next preseason, we got together at one of the crew's parents, and I came up with the name. They lived in Poland, and we were down there, home in Poland, New York. After a hard week of working, we were sharing stories about the previous season, like this one. As I was telling it, I forgot that Bobby was with us and told the entire prank. Bob poked his head in from another room saying, "So that was you, O'Byrne. I gasped and then just laughed with the rest of those there. So,
apparently
yeah.
9 months was a statute of limitations that was acceptable. They were couldn't be held accountable for it.
I just totally got into the story sharing and just totally forgot, because sometimes your uncle was just like one of us at times.
Yeah,
because we were.
That's a good point. And you think about going from one year to the next, it's kind of like, things could have gotten, it was like a reset, and not remembering maybe exactly who was there, but he remembered it when he talked with us. He was like,
I remember hearing it. I was like, I was waiting for it, and I was like, oh, he does remember it. But
so good. Well, I love that prank. We're not going to have time tonight, but I do want you to know that your name comes up every time I tell a story. It's not about Camp of the Woods, it's about Houghton. And I want to see if you remember this, but the bridge at Canyadia, do you remember jumping off the bridge at Canyadia? When I have a story, and I'll read it sometime when we have one of these episodes, so you'll get to hear it, but it's about jumping off the bridge. And I found out I was a freshman. It was like the second weekend there. It's still warm out. And my brother Don, 2 years older than me, he's a junior. I found out that they're going to this bridge to jump. And I'm like, can I go with you? Right. And I invited Don. We went there. And the story includes you because everybody's on the deck of the bridge jumping. It's about 25 feet to the water. But you were climbing up to the middle of the bridge. There was a platform in the middle, and you were the crazy person jumping from the middle. Now,
I remember Donnie being there as well as Scott, your brother-in-law, and
that was later. That was not this time. That was maybe the next weekend or something.
Yeah, there was other times that we would just hop in the cars and after 3:00 class, we are going down there because it's still warm, hot out in Western New York, and we wanted to be in the water. But that was the closest place that we had that was like anything in the Adirondacks with jumping. So that was my thing. And
why did somebody else climb up first, or were you the first person to climb up there?
Well, I'll even take it one higher. I was doing the middle of the bridge easily, and then there was a guy that went up, and he sat at the top and sat at the top and sat at the top, and we're like cheering him on to do it, and he climbed back down. And sometimes I get sweaty palms, and we're sitting at lunch talking about actually sitting in the stairway to go to lunch, where some people did that. I was one of those people. And we were talking about it, and my hands were not sweaty when I was talking about it. And I was like, I'm doing it today. I went all the way to the top, stood up with nothing, and just said, nobody jump, and took a step and came flying 55 feet down. So that's the highest I've done. Still jumped off of Christine up until last year, I think. This summer I didn't. But I've taken my sons, and my sons do it too.
Okay,
they're into it.
I went back there with my family. The landscape is totally different. Like, you can't run. Like, I have videos of Tom and I and us like jumping from Christine, from where you first come in there on the left and you can dive in. Like, it's all, the water's gone, or not gone, but it's
lower because of the dam.
Right. Okay. That's it. Auger still looks kind of the same. And Bruce, again, as we started off this podcast, I
watch kids at Christine do that jump, the running jump, and diving headfirst in there at Christine. And it's like, I'm not going to be responsible. So I usually turn around and walk away, because I've been there when people have gotten hurt, and I just don't want to be there again. But Auger has really changed after the big rain of 2000, the storm of, it was 2019, where they had like 10 inches of rain overnight and flooded out, and Route 30 was closed between Amsterdam and Speculator. It was actually the weekend of Dick Eliezer's memorial service, and my fiance and I, had to drive up Route 10 to get up, and we went through 6 inches of water. Luckily, I have a pickup truck, so yeah, Auger Falls really has changed because of that storm. Parts of that big cliff on the opposite side fell in, and it really has changed the landscape.
It has been 35 plus years. So
yeah, there's been different things where there's one of the big pines had fallen down, and you had to climb over it to jump from the 15-foot side. And, but I took my kids there. I have pictures of my kids jumping off the stuff. So,
right. Like I said, you're about to see Bruce O'Byrne.
Okay, here we go.
It's not like there's a glacier going over it. 35 years is, hasn't been. Editing will find a way that we're going to find a fun way to end this. So,
we have less than a minute. We're going to get cut off shortly.
Yeah. Bruce, will you come back and talk to us some more sometime?
We'll do a part 2, part 2.
Yeah. All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
Catching up with you, man.
So good talking with you.
Yeah, guys, I really appreciate it. I've watched, I think, all but one of the podcasts. You're excellent with it, and enjoy it very much. I had my Adirondack wall behind me here with the Adirondack and Lake Pleasant and